Hey, so I recently gave a 6-hour workshop in IIT Roorkee about cybersecurity. Here is one of the segments about malware and antiviruses. Stay tuned at the end for an important message. And you might realize there are a lot of jumps in the presentation, but if you understand all of it, then okay. No, I'm not telling that to you guys. In fact, that is also not my chat history, but that was the name of the malware. That was the name of the malware that was created back in 2004. Does anyone remember this malware? There was a virus named I Love You letter. It was a very simple virus. And what it did is it actually, whenever you get an email and if you click on the link, it would automatically run, it would overwrite files in your system, basically deleting them. And it would exchange those files with its own copy. Okay, this was the first documented case of an epidemic or pandemic hitting the entire world on basically the digital level. Okay, the dude that created this did not do it for ill intentions. The reason being he was too poor to afford internet. The reason he created this virus or malware at the start was he was actually writing a thesis. He was actually writing a thesis for his own master's program, right? And the thesis was rejected, and the thesis was everyone should have access to free internet. He thought that it is a human right, that everyone should have access to the untethered internet. So he wrote this piece of code, and what this piece of code did is it would go on everyone's network and steal their internet credentials, which just meant that he would have those ID passwords to gain access to a faster internet. That is what his initial cause was. He wanted to do that, right? And he did that. But there was one setting in the virus. He just thought that, hey, what if I do not keep it contained to this city? Like what this virus did is it would actually go on your system. It would actually take out the Outlook contacts history. It would take out the Outlook contacts history and it would go and email itself to all of these email addresses, right? Now what happens, now I'll just want you guys to be in that scenario. Imagine let's say you have your classroom, okay? Let's say one day you just open up your mail and there is a email from your crush saying that, hey, dude, listen, this is a love letter from me. You can obviously open it, right? This is kind of social engineering, but you are getting a love letter basically from your crush and well also the rest of the 59 other people, but you don't care. You're like, hey, listen, I'm getting an email, right? You open it, and the moment you open it, it has a VBS extension, it is basically a Visual Basic script. It will overwrite files and it's gone, right? And what happened is that dude changed the parameters in such a way that it was not limited to the city, it was not limited by IP addresses, and it was all over the world. United States Defense Department actually had to shut off their mail accounts so that they would not receive, right? Because there was no way to stop this. You get an email and someone would click it. That is the human nature. You click on it and you get it. That's the thing, right? And so they had to actually shut down the mail department of the defense for at least a few months until this situation was brought under control, right? And then they introduced technically our new modern age antiviruses. Okay, so I would just like to ask a question to you guys. How do you think an antivirus works? Anyone? Just a basic concept of like what is an antivirus or how does it work? Anyone? A pre-registered database of viruses? Okay. Okay. Yes, that is correct. We both are correct. So basically what an antivirus does is it has a series of definitions. It has signature definitions for all of the different viruses that are available. Okay, and what would happen is basically antivirus, every single time you update your system. Okay, if you have quick heal is actually very notorious for updating itself in the background. Okay, you can just right click on your, for example, quick heal and it will auto update. It will try to auto update. Right? It will get all the latest definitions from the internet, and every single time it sees a new file, it will scan it and it will be like, hey, listen, this looks very similar to this virus that I found, right? And it will actually flag it as a virus. But now my counter question is, what happens if I create my own virus? What happens if I create a file which has never been seen on the internet, which is never in the database registry? What do I do then? 0 day? Not exactly.
I think heuristics can also work if you can check how that file is working.
Okay, so you are talking about heuristics, which is a very kind of a very interesting thing because, okay, what he mentioned is heuristics. that antivirus, instead of scanning, obviously if you have a very big file, let's say a single file of which is let's say 12 gigs, your antivirus is not going to even try to scan it. Okay, it's going to use something known as heuristics. Heuristics meaning it would actually figure out what type of behavior this virus has. But to make sure that you have heuristics running, you have to run the file. But that seems very counterintuitive. Why would you run the potentially infected file? Any other options? Yes, heuristics is technically correct, and we do use that every now and then. Yes? Anyone? Sorry, blacklist and whitelist of what? But how would that change the fact that there's still a virus on your system? Like, how would you know beforehand? What if you get a file which is actually very important from your professor? Right? We usually get files, for example. See, you might have set up the most perfect Google Classroom or Teams implementation, but you will still get notes from your friends on WhatsApp. What happens? What if there's a virus inside that? What I'm trying to say is, unless you are a very big organization, there is no way for an individual to actually sit and whitelist and blacklist everything. Anyone else?
Run it on the virtual machine first.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. That is what we call sandboxing. Okay, sandboxing is a very simple concept where I actually take the file and actually try to run it, and then I see its intentions. Then I see that, okay, listen, this file wants to go and delete my system32 folder. Bad news. So antivirus is going to be like, hey, listen, that doesn't seem very good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to not let it run. Okay. And even if you had heuristics, sometimes there is something known as code obfuscation. Okay. What that means is you can have some code, you can have it encoded in very different manner. You can have it encoded again and again and again, at least 7 to 8 times. Okay. And by the time, you have done encoding 7 times, you are not going to understand. The antivirus is not going to understand what that file is. Okay. But if you run it in a virtual machine, if you run it in a sandbox environment, the virus will show its true intentions, and that is what, then the antivirus can just figure it out. Right. And that is what will happen. Okay. But there are still, hackers are not stupid. They will also see the latest ransomware, I believe. If you put it in a virtual machine, it won't run. It won't open. And there's no way of detecting it. Any other options? Then? Live boot. Okay. But there are still ways of figuring out if the storage is still less than, let's say your pen drive might have, let's say 32 gigs. Right? And the storage, the virus can still figure it out if it's a live boot or not. It won't run if it's a live boot. It's not that terribly difficult to figure out if it's a live boot or not. Dual boot. Then you are putting your different drives at risk. That's not a viable solution. Anything else? Heuristics was kind of the correct way, but anyone else? No one? Try to remember what other workshops are going on. Side by side, over these past 3 days, there have been workshops on what? Anyone, any guesses? Deep learning, ML. Yeah. Basically, deep learning and ML are the keywords that I'm taking out. Right. Sometimes you have to use artificial intelligence to figure out something if it's a virus or not. Yes, there is no guarantee to have 100% accuracy. You will never. And how does it work? We don't know. It's a black box. We don't know. And AI and machine learning algorithm will always be a black box to us. Yes, you can see neural network connections, whatever jargon that is. You can see that, but it's not gonna matter. You will not able to decipher what it does. Okay. Once again, this is not an AI or machine learning workshop, so we're gonna move on from that. But yes, more or less nowadays, your different antiviruses are using kind of AI, or I'm just going to call it a very simple heuristic model which figures out if something is a virus or not. And then we have the concept of putting something in a quarantine. Okay, if it is good enough for 99% of the cases, that, see, it's always better to have false positives than false negatives when it comes to cybersecurity, right? You would rather have a file show up as a virus when it's not, okay, rather than having a file which is actually a virus, but the computer is like, hey, it's fine, let's just run it, right? The same goes for if you go for, let's say, a COVID test. It should be the case that you should get false negatives more than you get false positives more than you get false negatives, right? Because you are just being cautious. And that is the kind of funda that we follow in cybersecurity too. Being on the red team, being on the blue team, you have to think from both sides. Being a red teamer means now you are the attacker. Being a blue teamer means now I have to figure out how to protect from this. Okay? Good video, right? Now you might be wondering how you can actually join one of these cybersecurity workshops. Well, good news for you. We have more workshops like these planned in the future. Now, if you're someone who is interested in cybersecurity and tech in general, the thing that you need to do right now is, first of all, subscribe to us, and second of all, follow us on Instagram so you can be updated about future workshops. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Fearless.